What is up, people? Welcome back to the channel. So this is video number 3. However, I think we're actually coming into week number 5 of the process. Let me just check on my actual tracker here. So yeah, we're into week 5 of the process. So last week I actually intended to vlog a little bit more. So last week I was back in Ireland because Emma was doing her first show in the NPC. So she competed in Muscle Contest Ireland. And the plan was, of course, to vlog the couple of days. And it did pretty well. I vlogged, 2 or 3 days. But in classic fashion, I didn't record any of the show day. Which you think would be one of the things that I record more. But, at the end of the day, I was there to support Emma. She was the one on stage. And I was essentially her personal photographer for the day. Alongside the two other videographers that were there. But you know what? Have to show support, and ultimately at the end of the day, that's her weekend, right? So I will show up some of the clips that I took across the weekend anyway, because you might kind of be able to see what we got up to. So had to train a couple of times in different gyms. Trained Muscle Mind in Artane, trained in Raw in Donnybrook, and had some pretty decent sessions. Got some decent posing in. Actually, haven't practiced like a round of posing in a long time. I'll show that video up on screen, but the physique is starting to come into play, man. Like, it is only 5 weeks into this diet phase, but I'm already actually starting to see like major changes in my physique. Like waist is coming in quite a lot. I'm starting to see a lot more kind of definition popping up in different places. I definitely do feel as well from just like having this slight increase in training volume in areas which I have been ignoring. I can start to see more fullness coming back, as well as like even like a little bit more fullness diet than I had previously. Now, whether that is like some slight increase of muscle growth because those areas have been understimulated for so long, or I'm just doing more, or it could be edema, right? Who knows? It doesn't matter because I look bigger, right? This is actually one thing. I'm going off a little bit of a tangent here, right? This is a good intro. One thing I hate when people, I see this online all the time when people are talking about like discussing training volume or discussing training studies, and they're like, oh well, that's not muscle growth, it's actually swelling. It's like nobody gives a flying fuck if it is cell swelling or if it is hypertrophy. If we're talking about visuals, right? If we're talking about visuals, and like I see somebody on the street and their arms are looking massive, right? They're filling out their t-shirt, they're on the beach and they're looking jacked as fuck. My mind doesn't go straight to probably all cell swelling, probably all edema. If they look jacked, they look jacked. Of course, like maybe if you're, I don't know, just really getting bogged down or a purist on like, fucking strength training or something like that. I guess like you could be, but at the same time, like it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. There is maybe a bit of a consideration for like, if you're doing a prep for bodybuilding and in the peak week, a lot of the, visuals are a result of cell swelling, but you would kind of know that. And realistically, across the prep, you're not doing like a random 6-week training program. During the prep, you're doing pretty much the exact same training program from start to finish with slight alterations of training volume. So any like water retention, edema, whatever like that, that's going to be gone within the first couple of weeks of training, right? It's not going to just like all of a sudden you've been following this program for months and then you stop doing it. And then all of a sudden, you start to lose loads of water retention. Like a lot of times when you are getting into that peak week, you are inflamed from your training, but you're also inflamed from the stress of the diet, from the stress of your low sleep levels, psychological stressors, all of those type of things. And typically when you do a deload, you just start to look better because you start to look leaner as you start to shed any of that like water retention that you do have, versus it being like, just edema within the muscle. Anyway, I think the edema thing is really just something that small people talk about in the comments to make themselves feel a little bit better that other people are bigger than them. Look, people are going to be bigger than you, people are going to be stronger than you. That's just how the world works. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent there. So today is Saturday and today is an upper body day. So I'm going to be going through essentially how I am currently structuring my upper body training session, which is pretty much going to be relatively even split of back, chest, delts, and arms. So it's a fun session. I'll bring you through the exercises. I'll give you some kind of teaching points again too, and just kind of I'll just take the day as it comes, right? So today I actually have quite a busy day at work. So working as an online coach does not necessarily mean that, you know, I just sit on the beach all day. As you know, you may have guessed from one of the earlier videos where I talked through like my kind of check-in process with clients. But today I have some podcasts to edit and upload as part of the Story Strengthcast. So maybe if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that there is some podcast episodes on the actual channel, which is just a solo podcast that I run. I also have another podcast that I run with Lawrence King. I guess the Strength Syndicate. We haven't done any episode in like a year, but I'm sure, you know, Lawrence has finished up his PhD now, so maybe we'll get some running again. And then the other things that I've got to do is I've got a client onboarding video to do. So when a client signs up with me, I don't just, you know, send them out their plan and say, you know, have at it. See you in a week for your check-in. Usually what I'll do is I'll set up on the app or on my Google Sheets. And then once they are set up there, I'll record like a 30-minute video just walking through exactly what I expect of them and what they can expect of me, how the service runs, just so that we're getting everything off on a good foot and they know exactly how to kind of go about the process, right? Because ultimately at the end of the day, the way I work is very specific to me. Like not every coach works the exact same way in regards to how they do their check-in process, check-in cut-off times, for example, how they want progress pictures, how they want their training videos sent over, things that they are expecting when it does come to like level of accuracy with calories and macros. And that's obviously going to vary between person to person. So I don't just send off like a generic PDF file of like, this is what to do. I'll quite often go through like, you know, the generic stuff like check-in cutoff times, what days you check in, blah, blah, blah. But then I will go through exactly what I want them to do on their training plan. So why I have their nutrition set up the way it is, how I'm going to be reviewing their nutrition. I go through their training program. I explain every aspect of the training program, why you're doing this exercise. I discuss the rep ranges, why you're doing this training split, because all that stuff is very, very important. It's important for the person to understand the why behind the what, because once they understand the why behind the what, it does help with them understanding the importance of that and the relevance of that to their goal. And then as a result of that, it increases compliance and it increases motivation too, because it kind of shows the person that like you're actually kind of doing your due diligence to actually kind of make this program specific for them. It's not just like going on to ChatGPT and saying, make me a program for this person, you know, because ultimately at the end of the day, that's where, you know, experience, education, and, you know, like, you know, actually caring for the client, care for the results. Because ultimately at the end of the day, if that person progresses, you know, that looks good for me. It's a, you know, it's a bonus for me too, right? Because ultimately my business can grow from me getting good results for people. So yeah, that's some of the tasks I have to do today. I've got a little bit of client feedback to do as well, just in regards to kind of messages on WhatsApp. And that's that, right? So next clip, don't know what it'll be, but you know, it'll be something. Come on. Literally every morning, at some point in the walk, there's a tug of war. And this is one of the reasons why being strong helps, because Samson is a strong dog. All right, we're back home, and you can see Emma's done an amazing job here of actually sorting out all our protein powders. So you can see that we are a Per4m household. So we have a couple of isolates up here. So most of the isolate is Emma's, except for the strawberry one. We share that one because I use that for my smoothie. And then any of the normal ways, they're mine, because I can actually handle dairy and lactose. It doesn't make my kind of skin break out or anything like that. It doesn't cause any digestive issues. But I got some new flavors this week. As you do when you're dieting, what do you do? Well, you know, probably don't have the calories to fit in a ton of really nice treats. Well, I guess I do, but I decide not to, especially when I have 60 grams of fat that I can eat most days. So I got the chocolate explosion, and I also got the cookie dough. So I've been using these either for paste, whey paste, or been using for Ninja Creamies. And like Ninja Creamies, like I might make one later on today. Fuck it, it's fucking Saturday. So Ninja Creamies, you know, throw this in like 30, 40 grams of whey with like 200 mils or so of some type of milk. It works nicest with like whole milk, of course, because there's extra fat, but obviously you don't have the kind of extra fats to be using today. So I'll probably use something like almond milk and throw it in Ninja Creamy, and it just let's say, pint of ice cream for the same calories as a protein shake. And then of course you'd add things into it, like usually add in like a Biscoff biscuit or some dark chocolate, something like that. But relative to what you might pay in a supermarket for like low calorie, high protein ice cream, you might spend like 3, 4, 5, €6. Whereas like this, price per serving, I guess, is very slim. And then of course the price per serving of almond milk is also very slim. So you're getting a pint of ice cream for, again, less than 300 calories and for probably about €2. It's not a bad deal. And of course, especially Per4m, they just taste amazing. So I had the cookie dough the other day in a creamy, tastes very cookie dough, like like your Ben and Jerry's type of cookie dough, that type of flavor. Very much, it bangs. And then the chocolate explosion, I had this as a whey paste yesterday. I'm going to do the exact same today and put it on top of my oats versus mixing it in. I haven't made protein oats in as long as I can remember, because I don't like protein mixed into them. I like it just layered on top, as if it's like a pudding, right? With like a kind of a topping. Yeah, but it is a topping. But like, you ever see like the Magnum cracked, where they have like the layer of chocolate over the ice cream? It's kind of like that, but protein. The explosion though, there's no pieces of eggshells in it, unfortunately, like you would have like with mini eggs, but it tastes pretty much exactly like Cadbury chocolate, which is incredible. I don't know how Per4m do it, but they're the best protein brand on the market when it comes to taste, in my opinion, and mixability too. So I'm not sponsored by them. I wish I was. If I was, I would be a very happy man and probably a lot richer. But here we are. If you need an instruction guide as to how to make oats, you're in luck, because I'm going to give you one today. Hopefully everybody who's watching this is of the age where you've learned how to make something as simple as oats. This is how I make it anyway. For my essentially, I kind of have this like a second part to my first part of my breakfast. So meal 1, part 2. But I usually like to have something a little bit kind of sweeter as part number 2. So add in a little bit of salt, bit of vanilla flavor drops, and then let's get some almond milk. Use about 250 mils here. Stir all that up. Try not to make a mess, like I just said. Microwave. Throw that in there for a minute and a half to start. And I will also show you how I make this whey protein sludge. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we are gonna get, there's a bit of my chili oil on this from last night. So we're gonna get 30 grams of whey. We're gonna throw in about the equal part of milk, maybe a tiny bit more. Sometimes the Per4m requires maybe an extra 10 grams. There's about 40 grams of milk there. And then the next part is to stir it until it forms into a paste. First minute and a half is over. Give it a bit of a stir. Throw back in for another minute. So this is kind of what it will start to look like when you're mixing it. It will look like you don't have enough liquid in it, but if you put too much liquid in it, it basically just turns into almost like a shake. So you want to get it to be this type of thick consistency. So that's 30 grams of whey with 40 mils of milk. I think it needs a tiny bit more milk. Now, that is the type of consistency you want. Almost like a spread type consistency. So yeah, I'm going to leave this now. I'm going to put my oats in the fridge. All right, so the oats are made. Same here, nice glass bowl, nice and fancy. And now, just going to pop it in the freezer. And we're going to leave it in here. Sorry for the state of the freezer. I'm going to throw it in here. Samson, you get away. Put it in there. And have meal 1, part 1. Yes. Get my dark chocolate ready. Put this up. Nice and finely. Spreads well. And now we add in the whey paste. Maybe a little bit too thick. And now put it all together. This is what it looks like. Usually I might make that sludge a little bit better. I'm still in the early days of getting back to my old kind of rhythm with making it, but it could definitely be a little bit more spreadable. That's very thick right now, but it's going to be absolutely delicious. So I'll just eat it like this. Won't mix it or anything like that. And it's kind of just like eating a cake or a pudding. Unreal. All right, we are in the gym and we're doing not necessarily a voiceover, but I guess I'm inside the screen twice. I'm both here and there at the very same time. So we have, first up, we have some incline chest flies. So I've actually been starting off with a cable variation for the last couple of weeks. However, the gym at this time on this day is also very, very busy. So I've been doing a single arm unsupported cable variation, and AJ was just like, we gotta change it out for something more stable, because I was getting up to a load where I was essentially just fighting like rotation, like if you're unsupported and you're trying to push this way and the cable's trying to pull you this way, naturally enough it requires a lot more stability. So just doing it a dumbbell incline fly here. So one of the most important things when it does come to doing any type of incline fly, whether that's cable or dumbbell, is that the upper arm is moving in line with those upper pec fibers. So if you're doing a cable variation and the cables are not at an incline where the actual path of motion is coming up in this direction and it's more coming across in that direction, you're just hitting the mid chest fibers, which is really, really important consideration, right? When you're using dumbbells and you have the bench on an incline like this, the upper arm has like almost no option but to kind of go in the path of motion of which you have the bench set to the incline, right? Whereas when you're using cables, you can do it in any way. The bench could be incline, but you could be doing a decline fly, you could be doing a mid pec fly, just based off the path of motion of the arm. So it's really important to ensure that upper arm is coming up and across, so coming from like low to high. One really good point here as well is like you'll notice as I'm coming into the bottom end range of motion, I'm letting my arm open up like this. That's coming into external rotation, which is one of the functions of the lat. So it's just not the lat, the functions of the pec. So it's just getting a little bit more length into the pec in that bottom end range. Then after that is into some dumbbell lateral raises. So dumbbell lateral raises, they're a funny one, right? Because they're very, very hard to know when you are actually going to hit failure, because it's just a case of like, well, when do I decide to stop? When do I decide that I can no longer kind of get into this top end range of motion? And you can use a lot of momentum to get up there, and I try to limit that as much as I can in these early sets. But then as I definitely get towards the latter sets, I do use a little bit more body English. And like ultimately at the end of the day, with a dumbbell lateral raise, like because there's pretty much minimal tension, well, there's no tension at the very bottom position, you want to just try to really kind of make use of that kind of mid to short position. So if using a little bit of momentum lets me get into that top end range motion and get another eccentric, well then I am going to use that. Ultimately at the end of the day, it is going to be one of those exercises which, it kind of lends itself well to using a tiny bit of body English. But if you're just using body English and you're just feeling your traps every single rep, well then you're probably using a little bit too much and you're probably bringing in other body parts. So one cue I like to use here to ensure that I'm really targeting my side delts is I think about kind of raising out to the opposite side of the room versus just lifting up. Because when I think about just lifting up, I end up shrugging like this. Whereas if I think about kind of pushing the dumbbells out to the other side of the room, I end up kind of using more of my glenohumeral joint versus using my scapula to kind of raise the dumbbells up. Then I just have one set per exercise, which I'm going to show you here. Although I'm doing like 2 to 3 sets for most exercises in this session. So one of the really kind of good uses of having a low volume or low set volume approach is you get more exercise variety in a short space of time. So you see, I have a number of exercises here. I don't know how many exercises, maybe 7, 8 exercises. But because I'm using a low amount of sets, I'm using like 2 sets for a lot of exercises. On some days, I'm only doing like 1 set per exercise. And that's essentially just to give like different body parts as like a little bit of attention relative to what I may be able to do if I was doing like 3 to 4 sets per exercise. So one of the big benefits, as I said, of using the lower volume or lower set approach
is you get more variation within your program. So you see there, I'm getting an overhead pull. We use neutral grip there to bias a little bit more of the lats, really think about driving the elbow down into my side. And then as I move into this machine, I'm trying to aim for a little bit more upper back bias, which you can see I have my fist turned over this way. So if you use overhand grip, that's going to change the position of the upper arm to be a little bit more flared out from your side, a little bit more abducted to your side. And as a result of that, when you pull in that path of motion, you're going to get a lot more of the kind of teres major. You're going to get a lot more rhomboids and kind of scapula protractors and retractors coming into play there versus the lats, where the lats are going to be a lot more kind of prominent when you have the arm a little bit close to your side. After that, I'm into a flat press. So one thing I could definitely do a bit better here is I think I might look at getting a yoga mat and put it underneath my back. And one of the reasons for this being is I'm going as deep as I can there without that like weight stack hitting off the support of the machine. But I definitely feel like I have a bit more range of motion at the upper arm. So putting a pad underneath my back will just give me a little bit more range of motion there. Give me a little bit more stability too, which can help with, of course, like a little bit more muscle growth. If I'm getting a little bit more range of motion based off what I can tolerate, well then it's going to be a good option, right? And you also see I have those yoga blocks set up, right? So the reason I have the yoga block set up is so that I can use these machines on a setting which at the very bottom position, I'm still getting a good amount of range of motion and I get an easier lift off. If I was to have it on the setting where it was most comfortable to lift off, I guarantee you that those trailing arms would be hitting off the stoppers at the mid range, which I don't want. I want to be able to get into as deep range of motion as I can really tolerate, especially if I can control a position and I own it. That's one really, really important thing when it does come to any training you're doing, right? So you want to go as much range of motion as you can do for your body and for your mobility, right? Ultimately, you don't want to go into a deep stretch as you possibly can, where it just ends up like potentially compromising joint integrity. It's causing some pain. You just want to kind of get into a position which you can own and tolerate. Again, position you can own and tolerate is a position where you can produce strength from and that you feel strong in and you feel stable in, versus a position you feel forced into. If I feel as if I can get like this far back with my arm, this is a position here which I don't own, I can't tolerate, because I have to use passive range of motion or passive force to get into that position. Whereas that's as much range of motion I can get into. This is passive, where I'm using a force to get me into that position. And a lot of people will use that when it comes to weights, right? They'll use a load to push them into a range of motion which they can't control, and ultimately that can cause some issues over time, especially because tendons, they take longer to adapt than muscles. So if you are somebody who is kind of maybe touching the bar of your chest or going lower than you can tolerate in a squat, hack squat, whatever it may be, and you're getting some joint discomfort, that could potentially be why. But anyway, finish it off with some arms, and this is the voiceover done. Sorry? Alright, so I am back from the gym, and I am here with the wife, or the wife to be. We're just going to go for a sauna now. So have this really nice place across the road from us. It's like €7 for a day pass, which, I mean, when you actually put it in perspective of how long we actually spent here, which is probably like 30 minutes, it's still okay. There's a really nice sauna and there's a nice pool. Probably a little bit too many children, but that's why I'm being careful with this camera, because I don't want to be going around and being seen as if I'm fucking recording kids while they're swimming. It'll be a bit weird. Anyway, we're gonna head in the sauna now, get our sweat on. Oh, I can never fucking work this out. Kind of get our sweat on, and Emma's feeling a little bit unwell as she vapes.
Am I sick? I shouldn't make too much.
Who knows? And so it is time to wrap up today's vlog, and we have a lovely creamy here to finish it off with. So I used a cookie dough Per4m. I found some fake Dubai chocolate. I haven't actually tried the Dubai chocolate yet, the like purple one. But fake Dubai chocolate with it's actually made with white chocolate casing, and then I also have crushed up Biscoff in it. So let's give it a taste test before we wrap up. So here we have it. Now yeah, that cookie dough. It's my second time having it creamy. That's even better again.
pint of ice cream basically. Basically a protein shake turned into ice cream for 300 calories. Can't go wrong. That's the macros finished for today. That's the vlog wrapped up. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, make sure to hit the follow button if you haven't already. Subscribe. Give the video a like. Have any questions? Any topics you want me to talk about in future videos? Leave it down below. But other than that, we'll see you next week.